Greetings from the great state of Pennsylvania. My name's Brett, and this is Topo Ranger for February 28th, 2026. Today, we are talking about GLOFs. Glacial Lake Outburst Floods. These things are insane and dangerous too. That's what you're looking at right here. This is a glacial lake outburst flood. Was that dramatic enough? So hit subscribe, ring the bell, follow me on the platforms, do all that good stuff. Today we're going to 2 locations to explore this topic. First, we're going to Alaska. Second, we're going to Iceland. We're going to have pics, we're going to have video, we're going to talk about it because I think you guys are going to be blown away by what you see today. And the background video for this intro is from K2 Public Media. That's the name of the channel. Juneau resident Adam D shot this drone footage on Saturday around 2:14 p.m. This is from August 5th, 2023. So this was only 2 years ago. Adam D shot this amazing drone footage. And we'll come back to that in a bit. But for right now, let's get started. So first off, let's go to Alaska, specifically the area in and around Juneau, Alaska. Here we go. Off to Juneau. Where is that sucker? And if we head this way, kind of westish, we get up to this thing here, which is a lake. And then you have these, I guess, I don't know if these are cities or villages or whatever, but there's these big neighborhoods leading up to this lake. And the name of that lake is Mendenhall Lake because the name of the glacier creating this lake is the Mendenhall Glacier, which is this beast right here. Look at that thing. It's just coming down. And conveniently, there is a Mendenhall Glacier Visitors Center. The video in the intro there, that very dramatic intro, I think that was shot right here. Right? This is bedrock, and then here's the glacier. I do think they have tours, I don't know what you want to call them, that take boats right up to here, which is kind of like, looks like, I think this is a gravel bar, and you go in here and you can explore this. So what's the deal with this glacier? Why are we talking about this glacier up in Alaska? Now, you may have actually seen this in the news since it did happen last year, and it happens every year. Basically, what you have is you have this huge basin called Suicide Basin, which is upstream or up the valley there, up the glacial valley from that gravel bar we just saw. It's off to the right side, and that thing basically fills up and drains and fills up and drains and fills up and drains, and it does that I think every year. Some years are worse than others. The last year in 2025 I think was pretty bad. Let's go ahead and look at some footage from that. This is another one from KTOO Public Media. Is that a local station perhaps? If you're from this area, leave a comment. And this video is 5 months old, and the title is Live Drone Footage from Juneau's Glacial Outburst Flood Helped Monitor Levee. So the floodwaters raised the river levels 16.65 feet in Juneau, Alaska, August 13th, 2025. So this wasn't even a year ago. And again, this happens every year. A temporary levee was all that stood between the river and hundreds of homes, which were flooded in 2024. And you could see the flood barriers on the left there. And I think that really did help quite a bit. Because again, this thing just comes through the glacier, floods through the glacier, comes pouring down into the lake, and then it just goes right through these parts of, I guess, what are considered Juneau. They had drones up, they had night vision going on, going all around, checking stuff out, monitoring stuff. And this is some night footage. If anyone fell into the river, a drone would have been used to follow them and guide rescuers to the location. And these neighborhoods living right on the creek or the river. And up there's the lake. I think that's the lake there. Yeah. Okay. And again, that's from videos courtesy of Alaska DOT and PF. That sounds like a government type of thing. So in 2025, the Mendenhall Glacier near Juneau, Alaska, triggered its 3rd straight year of significant glacial lake outburst flood, or GLOFs. And that word right there, which we're going to get to the pronunciation in a little bit, from a place called Suicide Basin. That big punch bowl basically on the side of the mountain is called Suicide Basin. A massive release of water from Suicide Basin. A side basin dammed by the Mendenhall Glacier caused record flooding on the Mendenhall River and Lake. The river crested at 16.65. It's a new all-time record, beating the 2024 record of 15.99 feet. Heavy rainfall combined with a sudden glacial release amplified the flood. And here's some pictures. And off in the distance here, you can see the Mendenhall Glacier. And it's just hiding there. It's just waiting there every year. Look at that. These are the streets. They're flooded. Epic. Look at this. But this does happen every year. Let's keep that in mind. Why this keeps happening? Suicide Basin fills every summer with snow, glacial melt, and rainwater when the Dice Dam of the Mendenhall Glacier is overtopped or lifted, right? Sometimes the water goes over the top, and then other times it actually lifts the whole glacier, whoosh, goes under the glacier in what they call subglacial conduits, or ice caves that run along the bottom of the glacier. Water drains rapidly underneath or around the ice, sending a surge downstream into Lake Mendenhall and the river. These GLOFs have occurred annually since 2011 and have grown more severe in recent years as the glacier continues to thin and retreat. So this is a reoccurring problem up here in Juneau. And I think after last year, they came up with some ideas about how they can deal with this more effectively. And we're going to talk about that at the end of the Mendenhall Glacier segment. So stick around. And here's that intro clip at a regular speed here. I pointed out where I think this is. You can see this little orange reddish blip here. That's a person. So we got some good scale here. This is the glacier. You see how you have this blue glacial ice peeking out from its the otherwise kind of dirty, dingy colored outcrops. Massive, huge amounts of water flowing down through the glacier. Okay, so this is the basin itself. This is Suicide Basin. This is the thing that's causing all the problems because it's filling and draining and filling and draining. And this is a time-lapse video, images of Alaska Glacial Lake Basin during flood outburst. Okay. And this is from 2023. So this is from 2 years ago. But I think essentially the same thing happens every year. So let's go ahead and watch this. There it is. And it's draining. There you go. And then all you're left with at the end is this blue ice. Let's watch that again. So that's filled August 4th. It's draining August 5th. Draining more August 6th. Boom, it's done. So essentially in 2 days, this huge basin just drains. And we got videos of people flying over this thing in a bit. So it's going to be pretty neat. And just to get a better idea of the size, let's go back to Earth here. And we're going to just real quick come in and look at this sucker. So here's the lake. I'm going to zoom in here. And here's that spot where I think that intro video was filmed, like I said before. So let's go up the glacier and see if we can't find this basin that's causing all of these problems. And it is right here. You see this? See this little sub-basin, right? I think this is the main part of the glacier. But then you have these, what I guess are snowfields or other smaller glaciers off to the side here. And this is the lake. Do they call it Suicide Lake? So let's go ahead and give you just an idea of what we're talking about in terms of size. So from the point where the basin joins forces with the main part of the glacier to the back end here is 0.7 miles. So 7/10 of a mile that way. And if we measure the width of Suicide Basin, we'll plant this sucker right here. And we'll plant this other sucker right here. That's about 4/10 of a mile. So 4/10, 7/10. It's a huge punch bowl. And that's why it's so dangerous, because it all suddenly just, and what it does is it leaks out here. It goes over top sometimes, I think, but other times it goes underneath the glacier. So let's go ahead and look at a short by Heli Pilot Lee. So Helicopter Pilot Lee, and this is a glacial outburst flood. I do think this is, well, we know it's in Alaska, but I do think this might be the one we're talking about. See those big blue chunks? We come up here, and you see the water is brown. The water is not clear. You know, it's not this some crystal clear, beautiful glacial lake. Got the falls there, and it's just chugging out of this thing. The water pressure becomes too great, and it overflows or it flows underneath. I like it when it goes underneath. To me, that's the cool part. Oh, I'm sorry. No, this is Columbia Glacier. My bad. But this is going to be very similar to what would happen. So this is not Mendenhall. This is Columbia. Again, the video is by Helle Pallet-Lee. But essentially the same, a very similar thing's going to happen. And it looks like she's just flying up the side. Glaciers on the right, bedrock on the left. Oh, you can see her feet in the copper. Look at those crevasses. Oh, and that blue. So what are they going to do about this thing? They put up the flood barriers, which seem to be working pretty well. And those are essentially these giant bags of, I guess, sand or gravel that they just line the whole area heading down by those big neighborhoods there to the downstream of the lake. They do seem to be working pretty well, but it could get worse. You know what I mean? And that's not a effective long-term solution, because I think those can be undermined as well gradually. And you got to keep filling them, probably keep putting them up there. So how do you take care of this problem long-term? Well, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has landed on a solution to this problem, right? Thank God for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And they want to put an end to the glacial outburst flood, this problem that is plaguing Juneau, that have grown more destructive in Juneau's Mendenhall Valley neighborhoods over the past few summers. And this is probably going to happen again this summer. So maybe we'll do a follow-up video. I guess maybe what is in August, I think, is that when it happens? And we'll see what happens this year. Hopefully it's not as bad as last year. The agency will pursue something called a lake tap. It's essentially a tunnel through Bullard Mountain on the east side of the glacier that's meant to steadily drain Suicide Basin so it can't fill to the point of bursting and send some 16 billion gallons of water through the valley. Now, that sounds like a lot of water, and it is. Don't get me wrong. But if you were to look at these outburst floods as compared to the things that happened even here in Pennsylvania, over there, Lake Missoula out west, and then along the bottom of the glaciers at the end of the last ice age, you had Lake Agassiz or Agassiz. I think I'm not sure about the pronunciation. And then you also have this other lake, Lake Ojibwa. I was reading in this book. Where is it? The title of this book is Ice Age Earth, Lake Quaternary Geology and Climate by Alistair G. Dawson's. And this is a really good book. I've been kind of sampling in here. And in this book, they talk about the super floods, the largest of which was when the glacial lakes at the foot of the Laurentide ice sheet, right? The Lake Agassiz and then Lake Ojibwa decided to head out. They went along the St. Lawrence River, okay? They also went down through the Mississippi Valley. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? I don't know. I'm not really sure. But those would have been the biggest glacial lake outburst mega floods of all. Bigger than Lake Missoula. Certainly bigger than Pennsylvania's own Lake Leslie. That's the name of the glacial lake that burst out through the dam up there in Muncie. If you watch some of the videos I did up at the Conewago Falls. I did one over this last summer. I'll put a link up to it right now. It's a two-parter, and we go up there. I think we took a kayak. We went up to the falls, and I talked about how the glacial outburst floods that came from Lake Leslie, right, which is basically right in the center of the state, came down through there, and it carved out all these unique pothole features. I don't know how many billions of gallons. I don't know how big that is. Obviously, I think Glacial Lake Leslie was a lot bigger than Suicide Basin. But again, the Lake Leslie would have been dwarfed by Lake Missoula, right, which is out west. And what's his name? Randall Carlson talks a lot about that. These were these huge mega floods that happened, every 100 years for thousands of years. And that's where you get the ripple marks, that are 300 feet long and 50 feet high. The one they talk about in this book right here, maybe in the future we'll do an episode just on this. This would have been the biggest glacial outburst flood of all time, draining through the St. Lawrence and into the ocean that way. Denise Koch, the director of engineering and public works at the city and borough of Juneau, explained it with a metaphor on Friday. I just think about Suicide Basin as a proverbial bathtub. What the lake tap is, it's just leaving the drain open. She said the drain will empty the water from Suicide Basin into Mendenhall Lake through a conduit somewhere between the face of Mendenhall Glacier and Nugget Falls. So they got together, they brainstormed it, and then I think this is the idea that they came up with that would actually make the most sense. Besides the lake tap, the options discussed at the meeting were a dam at the outlet of Mendenhall Lake, a permanent levee, a bypass channel through the Mendenhall River floodplain, and relocating impacted residents from the valley. That's probably the last thing they want to do because there's big neighborhoods down there and they don't want to, hey, y'all got to move, right? So Koch said the tunnel could take as long as 6 years to excavate. That's the most conservative. So it could take 10 years. It could take 6, it could take 10. And she said it could cost somewhere between $613 million and $1 billion. I mean, let's be honest, probably going to cost more than that, right? So this is an expensive solution, very expensive solution, but one that would at least theoretically make it so that people in those neighborhoods didn't have to leave. So at the end of this segment, where does this leave us? Well, as of late 2025, officials are moving forward with this long-term fix as the basin continues to pose a yearly flood risk. If you live in these neighborhoods, right, it's got to be a big drag. It's got to be like a sword of Damocles hanging over your head, right? And the heads of all your friends and family who live in this neighborhood. Every year, this is going to happen. Right. And I think they know what's going on. Hopefully they can predict pretty well what each successive year is going to be in terms of, oh, it's going to be a bad year, it's going to be a good year. But who knows? Other stuff going on underneath the glacier, I'm sure. You never know, and you can never predict perfectly. So if they could drain this thing throughout the year, that would be good. So hopefully that works out. I don't know. Would you buy a house in that neighborhood? Or let's say you grew up in a house in that neighborhood. Would you eventually be like, I'm out of here, I'm selling? Would you want to deal with that every year? I mean, it's beautiful up there, I'm sure. It'd be neat to live next to a glacier, but the GLOFs could get you, right? So I don't know. What do you guys think? Would you stay there? I wouldn't. I would like to live up there, but I wouldn't live right next to the river there. But I hope the people that do live there are safe this year.